So now today we are going to start with the new topic of arithmetic, which is ratios. So what we did up till now was one part of arithmetic where percentage was the base and the other two topics were the applications of percentage. Today we'll be doing ratio, where ratio is also a very important base for a lot of topics which will follow. Let's start with ratio. So first of all, what do I mean by ratio? So when I say, let's say A is to B is equal to 2 is to 3. It means it, or it can also be rewritten as A by B is equal to 2 by 3. So does this mean that the value of A is always 2 and the value of B is always 3? Does it mean that when I say A by B is equal to 2 by 3, can I say that I can, so for example, if I want to find the value of this expression, can I say I can just substitute A as 2 and B as 3 and find the value?
No, ma'am.
No. Then how can you interpret this 2 and 3 as? How can you relate these 2 and 3 to A and B? Or why no? I mean, why no? Just explain me that. Correct. You cannot substitute directly, but why so?
So the total thing is contains two parts of A and three parts of B.
Correct. So basically, this ratio
So it can be 2x and 3x makes up the entire x.
5x. Okay. Correct. So basically, what does this ratio interpret is when A is 2, B is 3. It is not necessary that A is always 2 and B is always 3. I mean, if A is 4, B becomes 6. If A is 12, B becomes 18. All these values of A and B are correct as long as they are following this proportion or this ratio. Do we understand this? Right? So I can say that A is a multiple of 2, definitely 2x. And when A is 2x, B is 3x. Now the value of x can be anything. So I cannot substitute A and B as 2 and 3 directly, but I can definitely substitute them as 2x and 3x respectively. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, talking about the functions that happen with ratios. So first thing is, how do I add any two ratios? So let's say I want to add the ratio 2 by 3 to the ratio 4 by 5. How do I add two ratios quickly?
Taking the LCM,
Yes, LCM of
the denominator,
so 3 and 5. The LCM would be
15,
15. So my numerator would be
10,
plus.
12.
I know you know this, so I'm not going to the detail. In case anybody is not familiar with this method, you can ask me and I will do it in detail. If you know it, it's just kind of a revision. Okay. Same thing happens with subtraction also. If there's a minus sign here, the only difference is this will be minus and this will be minus 2 by 15. Okay. How do I multiply two ratios? So let's say if I have to multiply 2 by 3 and 4 by 5, how do I multiply them? So multiplying is nothing but directly multiplying the numerators and the denominators. Correct?
yes, ma'am.
And how do I divide two ratios?
The second one will be reversed. So it will be 2 by 3 into 5 by 4.
Perfect. So to divide the ratios, the second ratio will be inversed and it will be then into multiplication. And so your answer will be 5 by 6. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Fine. Now, talking about the ratios, few more things about ratios here. So as you said, when I say A by B is equal to 2 by 3, it basically means that the total parts that I have are 5, where I'm distributing my 5 parts into 2 segments, where one gets 2 parts, one gets 3 parts, and that is A and B respectively. This is how I read the ratios, right? That is how the distribution happens, right? So, for example, if I'm told that I want to distribute, let's say, 720 rupees in A and B such that the ratio of A is to B is 5 is to 4. So how would you distribute into A and B? How would you do this?
5x plus 4x is equal to 720.
Hmm.
So we'll find x,
Hmm.
and then for A we'll multiply x by 5, and for B we'll multiply x by 4.
Correct. It's the correct method if I have to write down the entire thing. If I have to do it little faster by what I understood right now, when I say A is to B is 5 is to 4, so can I say A gets 5 parts and B gets 4 parts?
Yes.
Yes.
Thus, can I say the total parts are 9 parts?
Yes.
Okay, now I have a total of 720. So can you just tell me mentally, if I divide 720 into 9 parts, what would be the value of each part?
80.
80. So now A gets 5 parts of 80, which is 400, and B gets 4 parts of 80, which is 320. Okay, so what you said was step by step. We did the same thing, but if you can skip certain steps in the writing and do it mentally, you will definitely save time. But you have to get into the practice of doing that correctly. We cannot afford making mistakes, right? So, till you don't start practicing these things mentally, you will never be confident enough. All right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then moving ahead. Next, let us see how do I combine two ratios. We saw add, subtract, multiply, divide, and distribution. Now let us see how do I combine two ratios. Let's say A is to B is 4 is to 9 and B is to C is 9 is to 2. So what will be A is to B is to C? What will be the
We'll have
combined ratio?
the values of B same.
Hmm.
So when we write it in the form of fraction, we can multiply for the values of B to be same.
But यहाँ पे it is already same, no?
Yeah, यहाँ पे it's same. So we can just take 4 is to 9 is to 2.
Correct. Okay. And instead of 9, if this would have been 3, then what would have been your common ratio? So clearly, if I have to combine these two ratios, what I'll have to do is I'll have to make the values of B same.
We'll
Right?
multiply A's to B by 3. By 3.
By 3. Correct? So now this becomes 12 is to 9 is to 2. So you have to be careful about one thing, that when you combine two ratios, your individual ratio should not be harmed. So A is to B is 4 is to 3. That should not be harmed. And B is to C is 9 is to 2. Even that should not be harmed. So let's look at proportion. What do I mean by proportion? Okay. So when I say that, let's say A is to B is, let's say, 2 is to 5 is also equal to 6 is to 15. Is this correct, right? So whenever I have two ratios which are equal to each other, they are said to be in proportion. So if I say that 2 by 5 is equal to 6 by 15, I can say that 2 is to 5 is in proportion with 6 is to 15. How do I write it? 2 is to 5 is in proportion with 6 is to 15. So this is the sign of proportion. Are we getting this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when two ratios are equal, they are said to be in proportion. So what are the properties of numbers in proportion? So when these two ratios are in proportion, I can also say that these four numbers are in proportion. The first proportion is 2, second proportion is 5, third proportion is 6, and fourth proportion is 15. So if I have any two ratios which are equal and they are in proportion, let's say A by B is equal to C by D, what are the properties that follow is this ratio A by B will of course be equal to C by D. Another property is your A and C ka ratio will also be equal to B and D ka ratio. Clearly, no, if you just interchange these places, your A and C ka ratio 2 is to 6 will also be equal to 5 is to 15. And the third property is your A into D will be equal to B into C. So your product of extremes is equal to product of means. Why are we doing these properties is because sometimes if I am given 3 numbers out of 4 numbers, any one number is missing, I can use this property to find that missing number. Okay, let me give you a question for that. All right, let's say what should be the third number?
7 into 27 is equal to 9 into x.
This can be one way, or you know that this ratio and this ratio has to be equal, right? So if 9 is to 27 is 1 is to 3, so 7 is to what will give you 1 is to 3?
21.
Correct. So this is the meaning of proportion. Now proportion can exist between 4 numbers. Proportion can also exist between 3 numbers. How? So let's say for example numbers like 3, 9, 27 are the 3 numbers in proportion. So when are the 3 numbers said to be in proportion? When this ratio between first and second is equal to ratio between second and third. If these 3 numbers are A, B, C, for example, your A is to B should be equal to B is to C, which also means your B square is equal to AC. So B is called the mean proportion of A and C. What is B called? The mean proportion of A and C. So let's say if something like this is given, you have a 16 and you have a 25 and you are asked the middle number. What will your middle number be? If the 3 numbers are in proportion.
Ma'am, can you repeat it once more?
So I said for 3 numbers to be in proportion, when are 3 numbers said to be in proportion? Where the ratio of first and the second is equal to the ratio of second and third.
Yeah.
Which means that your second number square, B square is equal to AC. So B is called the mean proportion of A and C.
Got it.
Is it 20?
So how did you find 20 is correct? How did you find it?
I multiplied 16 into 25. It gives you 400. So the 400 square, root is 20, right?
Okay, but you could have done it otherwise also, no? B square is 16 into 25, correct? Can you see both of these themselves are perfect squares? So if you directly take their root individually also, you will still get the value of B as 20. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Next that we'll be going to is variation. We did ratios, we did proportion. Last thing we'll understand is variation, and then we'll start with the questions. Okay? All right. So what do I mean by variation? Basically, variation is how is certain number related to the other number. There are two types of variation that we'll be looking at. One is direct variation and one is inverse variation. Okay. Now, what is direct variation? So, direct variation exists between any two numbers which increase together or decrease together. So, for example, if I talk about speed and distance, okay, let's say if I drive at a speed of 40, I cover a distance of 120. So, what will be the distance covered if I drive at a speed of 80? It's a practical question. If I'm driving at a speed of 40 in a certain amount of time, now because there is now no mention of the time over here, it means the time is constant in all the cases. So if I drive at a speed of 40, if I'm covering a distance of 120 kilometers, for the same time, if I drive at a speed of 80 instead, how much distance will I cover?
240.
240, right? What if I drive at a speed of 60?
180.
180. What if I drive at a speed of 20?
150. Sorry,
What?
60. Sorry, 60.
Right. What if I drive at a speed of 30?
90.
90. So if you observe in these two, between these two variables, if the speed increases, distance also increases. If the speed decreases, distance also decreases. Right? But what remains constant is the ratio between the two numbers. Can you see 40 is to 120 is 1 is to 3. This 1 is to 3 ratio is maintained between every pair of speed and distance. Can you see this?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So speed is in direct proportion with distance, where what remains constant is ratio. What do I mean by that? That the ratio of any pair of speed and distance, let's say S1 upon D1, will always be equal to any other pair of speed and distance. So this can be used to find the missing value. Are we clear with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what about inverse variation? So inverse variation is, of course, where they don't go in the same direction. So for example, if I have to talk about speed and time, let's say if I'm driving at a speed of 40, I'm taking 6 hours to reach a place. If I try to reach that same place with a speed of 80, how much time will I take?
3 hours.
3 hours, right? Same place with a speed of 60. What happened? With a speed of 20,
12 hours.
12 hours, okay. With a speed of 30, can you see any relation between 46, 83 and 2012? What is constant between them?
Double, reduce, double the speed, then time is reduced to half.
Correct. So as we said, as we saw here, that between any pair of speed and distance, the ratio was constant, correct? So similarly, in the inverse variation, between any pair of speed and time, what do you see is constant? Product. Can you see 40 into 6 is?
240.
80 into 3?
240.
20 into 12?
240.
So 60 into what should be there?
4.
And 30 into
8.
8. So whenever there is an inverse variation, so this is how it is written. Speed is inversely proportional to time. What remains constant is product. So basically, your S1 into T1 will always be equal to your S2 into T2. So these are the two variations. So we will of course be seeing few questions related to variations as well today. But sometimes it is not necessarily given, or They may not necessarily give you the variation, but seeing, for example, if I talk about men, number of men and days taken to complete the work, so you have to apply your common sense and judge whether these two things are directly proportional to each other or inversely proportional to each other. What do you think? Number of men and number of days,
Inversely proportional?
right? Because more the men, less the days. Correct? Number of men and the amount of work done would be directly proportional because more the men, more the work. So let's start with this question. In a box containing, if a box containing 2 dozen mirrors, the 2 dozen is how many mirrors?
24.
24 mirrors is dropped. Which of the following can be the ratio of broken to unbroken mirrors? What do you think should be your answer and why? If the total mirrors are 24, what can be the ratio of broken to unbroken mirrors? Clearly, the total of broken and unbroken mirrors should also be 24, right? So, which of the given ratios can be distributed from 24?
5:3.
Right? Because the total of 5 and 3 is 8. So I can make 8 parts of 24, but I cannot make 9 parts, 10 parts, or 5 parts of 24. If I make 8 parts of 24, each part is 3, which means there are 15 broken mirrors and there are 9 unbroken mirrors. But this cannot be done with the other ratios. Okay, next, let's see this. 74,000 is distributed among XYZ in the ratio 1 is to 4, 1 is to 5, 1 is to 6. What is the share of Y? So first thing is, here the ratios itself are given in 1 by, I mean, each ratio is given into inverse format. So what is the first step you do is, you try to get the ratio in the whole number format. From the fraction format to a whole number format. To do that, what should you do? What's your first step? You will have to take the LCM of the denominators. What would be the LCM of 4, 5 and 60? Sorry, 4, 5 and 6?
Please.
It's 60, which means your first ratio becomes 15 by 60. Your second part becomes 12 by 60, correct? And your third part becomes 10 by 60. So this ratio can be rewritten as 15 is to 12 is to 10. Now you should be trying to solve the question. You are asked the share of y. So y is how many parts? Y is how many parts?
12.
12 parts out of how many parts?
37.
So 12 parts out of 37 parts of 74,000 is the value of y. Are we clear on this? Clearly, this gets directly cancelled by 2 and you get your answer as 24,000.
Ma'am,
Yes,
how
ma'am.
do we get the 37?
15 plus 12 plus 10.
Got it, ma'am.
Moving ahead, some amount is divided between A, B, C and D such that A by B is equal to B by C is equal to C by D is equal to 3 by 4. Okay, so I have been given 4 ratios equal, but I will still have to combine all of these ratios to get a common ratio between A, B, C, D. Only then I'll be able to solve ahead, because then I'm given the relationship between B and D, and I don't have any ratio between B and D. So first thing is, I'll have to combine my ratios. Right. Now, because the relationship is given between B and D, let me first start by combining these two ratios, because these two ratios have B and D in common. So what should be B is to C is to D? Anybody? So if B is to C is 3 is to 4, and C is to D is also 3 is to 4. If I want to combine these two ratios, what should be B is to C is to D? Come on.
9 is to 12 is to 16.
Did everybody understand this? The method that we used for combination, if I want to combine, I'll have to get my C same. If I get my C same, this ratio will have to be multiplied by 3 and this will have to be multiplied by 4. Okay. Now what is told to me? B gets 308 less than D. Now does this ratio mean that if B has 9 parts, D has 16 parts? Or if B is 9x, D is 16x. So can I say 16x minus 9x is 308? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So 7x is 308. So what would be x? What would be x?
44.
44. Right? So can I get the values of B, C and D at least? Because this x will apply to only B, C and D, not to A as of now. Be careful. Okay, so your B will be 44 into 9, which is
396.
C will be 12 into 44, which is
528.
and D will be 16 into 44,
704.
right? You are told to find the values of A, B, C, D. Now you also know that A is to B is 3 is to 4, correct? So if 4 parts is 396, what would be 3 parts? Can we just cross multiply and find it? If 4 parts is 396, 3 parts will be what? Find and tell me the answer.
$297.
290.
7.
Right. These are your final answers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just be careful that whatever variable you are using, for example, x, just be careful that you do not apply x directly to all the numbers unless you have combined the ratios. All right, moving ahead. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's look at this question. A person has a total of rupees 210 in the form of 1 rupee, 50 paisa and 25 paisa coins. And the number of these three types of coins are 2.5 is to 3 is to 4 in the ratio. How many 1 rupee coin does the person have? Okay. So first of all, if I see this ratio 2.5 is to 3 is to 4, can I write it as 25 is to 30 is to 40? Is everybody with me on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Or if I still reduce it, can I write as 5 is to 6 is to 8? Okay. So I can say my 1 rupee coins are 5x, my 50 paisa coins are 6x, and my 25 paisa coins are 8x. So I can write this entire equation as my 210 rupees is formed by 5x coins of 1 rupee plus 6x coins of 50 paisa plus 8x coins of 25 paisa. I'm dividing by 2 and 4 because those numbers are in terms of paisa and my equation is in terms of rupees. So what would be the value of x? 5 plus
21.
2 would be 10. So my x is 21. What are you supposed to find? number of 1 rupee coin. So what should be your final answer? What should be your final answer? 21 into 5, which will give you
52.
105. Because your number of 1 rupee coins are 5x. The value of x you got as 21. So 5x would be 21 into 5. All right. Abu, Ibrahim, and Khalid, they inherited few gold coins. Now, guys, I want you to try solving, and then I'm okay if we discuss it. But I want you to give me inputs rather than me telling you the solution directly. If they share those coins in the ratio 1:5:8, then one coin remains left out. But if they share the coins in the ratio 1:3:7, no coin is left out. Comparing both the cases, what is the minimum possible difference in the number of coins that Khalid can get? Let's first try to understand both the statements. Abu, Ibrahim, and Khalid, they inherited few gold coins. If they share these coins in the ratio 1:5:8, one coin remains left out. So, from this statement, what can you say about the total coins?
Maybe x plus 5x plus 8x plus 1 is equal
Correct.
to x plus 3x plus 7x.
I cannot use same variable in both the statements. No. But this is correct. According to the first statement, the total number of coins will be 14, multiple of 14 plus 1, because one coin is left out. Correct? Now the second statement says if they share the coins in 1:3:7, no coins are left out. So according to the second statement, if each one gets y, 3y, and 7y, my coins are finished, which means the coins are definitely a multiple of 11. Do we understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
And we are supposed to find the minimum possible difference, which means first thing is we are supposed to find a minimum such value which satisfies both these cases. Let us try to start putting values of y. If I put value of y as 1, my total coins become 11. Is that possible? Will it satisfy the first case?
No.
No. If I put my y as 2, my total coins become 22. So is there any value of x which can satisfy the total as 22? What I mean is, if I put 14x plus 1 is 22, do I get any value of x which is a whole number? Because your coins can't be in fractions, no?
No, ma'am.
Not possible. If I put y as 3, total coins become 33. So if I put 14x plus 1 is 33, can this satisfy any value of x?
Yes, ma'am.
Which value?
3.
14
Because
3 size
14 into 3 gives you 32. So 32 plus 1 gives you 33.
14 into 3 gives you 42, not 32.
Oh, yeah, 42.
4, 14x plus 1 is 44. Does this satisfy?
No, ma'am.
5,
No, ma'am.
okay. What about 6? 7?
No, ma'am.
Then we are in a fix. Right.
Ma'am, 9
9 will
does.
satisfy. Yeah, 9 will. That was what I was going to say. So 9 will satisfy. That is the lowest number possible. There can be more numbers ahead of that also, but the lowest is 9 that satisfies. If I put 14x plus 1 is 99, 14x becomes 98. And thus your x becomes
7.
okay. So now what have they asked me? What is the minimum possible difference in the number of coins that Khalid can get? Now in the first case, Khalid gets 8x coins. So 8 into 7 is 56. And in the second case, Khalid gets 7 Y coins, where Y is 9. So 7 nines are 63. So what is the difference between 63 and 56?
7.
7. Are we getting it?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Where did you get stuck?
After finding the value of x, y, which is 9.
Right. So when you found your value of Y as 9, your X came down to 7. That you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now they have asked me the difference in the coins that Khalid can get. So in both the equations, Khalid was that last person. In the first equation, Khalid gets 8x coins, and the second equation, Khalid gets 7y coins. So I'm basically supposed to find the difference between these two numbers. So 8 into 7 is 56, and 7 into 9 is 63. The difference between the coins Khalid can get in both the cases will be 7.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving ahead. Income of A and B are in the ratio 6 is to 5. Expense is in the ratio 17 is to 14. If each saves 2500, find the income of A. So, how will you do this?
We'll get two equations.
Mhm.
6x minus 17y is equal to 2500,
Mhm.
and 5x minus 14y is equal to 2500. So
Okay.
basically, both are equal.
Okay. But did everybody understand why are we taking two different variables over here? Or do we have a question in that?
No, ma'am.
Because income has a particular ratio where both the incomes can be written as 6x, 5x, and expense have a particular ratio, so I cannot use the same variable here. So I'll have to use both their expenses as 17y and 14y. Okay, perfect. Now,
We can make the values of x equal. So multiply first equation by 5 and second by 6.
okay, and you solve simultaneously both the equations and you get your answer. Or because the right hand side of both the equations are equal, can I say 6x minus 17y is equal to 5x minus 14y? So 6x minus 5x is x, minus 14y plus 17y is 3y. So can I say x is equal to 3y? Now if I substitute x is equal to 3y in any one of the equation, so for example 6 into 3y is 18y. 18 minus 17 is y. So basically you get your value of y as 2500. Right. Now, if you want, you can use this value in any one equation. So 6x is equal to 2500 plus 17 into 2500. Pay attention on the way I am calculating. I am not multiplying 17 into 25 first because that would be tedious. I'm just rewriting in the equation format. So 2500 plus 17 into 2500 is nothing but 18 into 2500. As long as cancellations are possible, no, I will not multiply. So 6 threes are 18. So clearly my value of x becomes 7500. Now, what am I asked? I'm asked the income of A. What was income of A? 6x. So basically, your answer is 6 into 7500. Now, this I would have to calculate. Do we understand this?
Yes, ma'am.
Income of A comes down to 45,000. Okay, so again, I'm repeating myself. Uh, these type of questions we have done in school for sure earlier. Clearly, you all also know the method to proceed. So concentrate on the shortcuts that we are using for faster calculations. So once you arrive at this equation, what could be the shorter way? Of course, there is a longer way of solving two equations simultaneously. You go by it, you will get the answer. Nothing will go wrong. You will just spend more time. Fine. So concentrate on shorter methods wherever possible from now on. Okay. All right. Let's see this. Incomes of A, B, C are in the ratio 7 is to 9 is to 12. Expenses are in the ratio 8 is to 9 is to 15. A saves 1/4 of his income. Find the ratio of their savings. Yes, how can we move ahead? If I take their incomes as 7x, 9x, 12x, and their expenses as 8y, 9y, 15y. Tell me, how can we move ahead from here?
7x minus 8y is equal to 1 by 4 of 7x.
Okay, that is the only way we can go. Perfect. So, because I don't have any other information apart from this, in fact, I need to know the ratio of all their savings. I'll have to first just solve this and see if I'm getting any relationship between x and y, right? Okay, let's try to do that. 7 fours are 28, 8 fours are 32, is equal to 7x. So 21.
21x is equal to 32y.
Correct. I cannot cancel these further. So I can say my x by y is 32 by 21. Now, what does this mean? That when x is 32, y is 21, correct? So we can simultaneously use the value of x and y as 32 and 21. Let's try to do that. So if I put x as, in terms of A, B, and C, income, if I put x as 32, what would be the income of A? 32 into 7?
224.
224.
2,
24.
24. 32 into 9
288.
and 32 into 12,
384.
384, right? Similarly, if I have to do with the expenses where I put y as 21, so 8 into 21,
168.
168.
168. So if income is 224 and expense is 168, the savings would be
56.
56. So is 56 1/4 of 224?
Yes, ma'am.
Which means this condition satisfies. So these numbers that we are going ahead with are correct. So here 9 into 21 would give me 189. So what would be the savings of B if income is 288 and expense is 189?
99.
99. And similarly, 15 into 21 will give you the expense of C. So 15 into 21 would be
315.
315 and the savings would be
69.
69. So I can get the ratio of their savings as 56 is to 99 is to 69. I don't think this can be reduced further with the same number. Can it? All right. Moving ahead. Ratio of income of A and B is 7 is to 4 and the ratio of expense is 5 is to 4. Which of the following is true?
Maybe nothing can be said about their savings
Why so?
because we don't know x and y.
Hmm.
So
Okay. So clearly here, because the values of x and y are unknown, and also if you talk about saving of A is 7x minus 5y. So out of both the numbers, it's a bigger number minus the bigger number. Whereas expense saving of B is smaller number minus the smaller number. In this case, you cannot determine which value will be greater. But instead of this, if this would have been, let's say, 2 is to 3, for example. Okay. So bigger number minus smaller number out of the two would have definitely given you more savings than the other. Are you getting me? So of course, this is a bigger number and this would be the smaller number in terms of expense. And this would be the smaller number in terms of income, but the bigger number in terms of expense. So if smaller income and greater expense will always give you lesser savings than more income and lesser expense. Do you get this? But in our original question, this is
Yes,
not
ma'am.
the case. It's bigger number minus bigger number and smaller number minus smaller number. That is why nothing can be said. Next, come on, let's try to do this. The ratio of number of male to female journalists in a newspaper is 5:4. The newspaper has two sections, political and sports. If 30% of male journalists, so for example, first of all, how many male journalists in total? Let's say 5x, and female journalist is 4x. 30% of male journalists. So what is 30% of 5x?
15 by 10x,
Which means 3 by 2x.
8 by 2x,
And what would be 40% of 4x?
8 by 5.
8 by 5x. So I am said that these many people are covering political news, right? So if I take the total 3 by 2 plus 8 by 5 x, that would be how much? 15 plus 16 by 10, right? Which would give me 31 by 10 x. What is the percentage of journalists currently involved in the sports reporting? So first of all, what are the total number of journalists that we are looking out at?
9x.
9x. So out of 9x, if these many are in politics, remaining will have to be in sports. Do we understand this? So 90 minus 31 will give you
59x by 10.
59x by 10. Right? So I'm asked what percentage of total. So 59x by 10 upon 9x into 100 is your required answer. Right? So 59 upon 90 is the percentage that they are looking out at. Clearly, it is more than 50%. So what is 60% of 90? What would be 60% of 90?
54.
54. So clearly, because numerator is 59, it is more than 60%. So this answer goes away. What is 70% of 90?
63.
So clearly, it is lesser than 70%. And that is why it has to be closest to, because they have said approximate, closest to 65%. One more way that we could have gone with this without using my variables and my fractions is I could have assumed male journalist to be 50, female journalist to be 40, because everything is given to me in terms of percentage and asked in terms of percentage. I can easily assume my values also and go ahead. If I say 30% of male journalists, it's 15, 40% of female journalists is 16. So total 31 out of 90 are occupied. So remaining 59 out of 90 is what I was supposed to find. So I think this was a much better approach if I would have not used variables, but suppose clearly just given 50 and 40 as the total number. Fair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's look at this. 1 year ago, the ratio of Harsha's and Mandar's salary was 3:5. The ratio of their individual salaries of last year and present year are 2 by 3 and 4 by 5 respectively. If the combined salary for the present year is 86,000, find the present salary of Harsha. So first of all, how will we form the equations? Let's say present salary of Harsha is H and Mandar is M, And past salary of Harsha is small h and Mandar is small m. Is that okay? So
Yes,
what
ma'am.
can be the first equation that we can form? Ratio of 1 year ago, ratio of Harsha's and Mandar's salary was 3:5. What can be the first equation? H upon M is 3:5. Are we getting this, girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what does the second statement mean? That is very important. The ratio of their individual salaries of last year and present year are 2:3 and 4:5 respectively. So what is this 2:3?
Small h upon big H.
Correct. Is 2:3 and small m upon big M is if their combined salary for the present year is 86,000, which means H plus M is 86,000. What is H? Is what they are asking. Now tell me, how can we go about this? Any idea? See, clearly I am supposed to find the relation between a big H and a big M. And the ratios I have don't have both of them together. So how can I get the relation between these two when I have these individual ratios? So in this case, I'll have to combine these individual ratios, right? So let's say if I have to combine these two ratios, right? This is H, small h is to small m is 3:5 and small h is to big H is 2:3. Now tell me, to combine these two ratios, which variable has to be same?
Small h.
Perfect. Right. So what will I have to do?
Multiply first by 2 and second equation by 3.
Okay, so let's write a combined ratio now. H is to M is to H. What will be my ratio?
6:10:15.
Is to not 15, 9. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now if I want to combine this ratio with small m to big M, which is 4:5, what will I have to do? I'll have to make this small m same, correct? So what I'll have to multiply this with? Is everybody getting what I'm doing? Girls, this is important. So I'm doing step by step. Are we getting it?
Yes, ma'am.
So now tell me the combined ratio. Come on, I'm not going to tell this.
12
12. Small m would be?
is to 20.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is to 18 is to 25.
You can also check whether your individual ratios are maintained or not. Small h is to m is 3:5. This is maintained, right? Then h to h is 2:3. Even that is maintained. M to M is 4:5. Even that. This is important. If this is not maintained, which means you have done some mistake. So clearly from this, can I say big H to small, sorry, big H to big M is 18:25? Now I am asked big H. I know that both of them together makes 18 parts plus 25 parts. Makes how many parts? 43 parts? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So your big H is nothing but 18 parts out of 43 parts of 86,000. Now 43 and 86,000 clearly cuts down easily to 2,000, and that is why our answer will be 36,000. Moving ahead, let's try this. In an examination, Rama's score was 112 of the sum of scores of Mohan and Anjali. Let's first write this equation. How will you write it?
R
Rama
is
in
equal to 1 by 12 in brackets m plus.
A, right? After a review, the score of each of them increased by 6. So your Rama scores plus 6, Mohan's scores plus 6, and Anjali's scores plus 6 were now in the ratio of 11 is to 10 is to 3. Then Anjali's score exceeded Rama's score by how much? Okay. They're talking about Anjali and Rama's score, right? From this ratio, can I say that Rama's score and Anjali's score plus 6 are in the ratio of 11 is to 3? So can I say Rama's score plus 6 is 11x and Anjali's score plus 6 is 3x? Are you all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Now here they are asking me Anjali's score exceeded Rama's score. Anjali, Mohan and Rama. I think we have made a mistake in writing this equation. Do you realize what mistake? Nobody corrected me. Can you see the sequence that they have put over here?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
basically the ratio will be 3 is to 11. No problem. This will be 3x and this will be 11x. Now I am told the difference between Anjali's score and Rama's score. So if I take the difference between these two, a plus 6 minus r plus 6, clearly your 6 gets cancelled. So your a minus r is nothing but 8x. So do you see that the difference always has to be in terms of in multiples of 8? Do you agree with that? Your difference between Anjali and Rama's score should always be multiple of 8. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Because the difference between A and R is 8x. Scores cannot be in fractions. So any number which is 8x format has to be a multiple of 8.
Okay, ma'am.
So clearly your second and third option cannot be your answer. Agreed?
Yes, ma'am.
Now what I can do is I can use options. Let's say if I assume that my answer is 24, which means your x will be 3. Correct? So if
Yes,
our
ma'am.
x is 3, let's try to substitute everywhere and see if it satisfies. Okay. So if your x is 3, which means this becomes 3 3s are 9. This becomes 11 3s are 33. Okay. Which means r before the review becomes 3. A before the review becomes 27. I hope everybody is with me.
Yes, ma'am.
And m plus 6 is also 10x, which is 30. So m before the review becomes 24. So are these three values of r, a, and m satisfying this? That is what I'll have to check. So m plus a is 24 plus 27, which is 51. 51 divided by 12 is definitely not 3. Are you getting this?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
This should satisfy. So after a point in such questions, if you use options, it's going to be easier, faster. Again, no need to solve both the options. You select any one. If that satisfies, fine. If it doesn't, the other one is the answer. Then moving ahead, let's try this. The salaries of Ramesh, Ganesh, and Rajesh were in the ratio 6 is to 5 is to 7 in 2010 and in the ratio 3 is to 4 is to 3 in 2015. If Ramesh's salary increased 25%, then the percentage increase in Rajesh's salary will be closest to. This is actually easy. So first of all, Ramesh, Ganesh, and Rajesh. What can you say about their salaries in 2010? What will be their salaries?
6x, 5x, and 7x.
Perfect. And their salaries in 2015?
3y, 4y, and 3y.
Right? So we don't get confused. Now Ramesh's salary increased by 25%, which means they are saying, how will you write the equation if 3y is 25% more than 6x? How will you write the equation? If something is 25% more, what will be the multiplier?
5 by 4.
Correct. So 3y is 5 by 4 of 6x. Do we understand this? Okay. This becomes 2. This gets cancelled. This gets cancelled. So what are we finally left with? Now they are asking me what is the percentage increase in Rajesh's salary. So these two. How do I find percentage increase between two numbers? Difference upon?
3y minus 7x upon 7x.
Correct. Into 100, right? So
Yes.
if I individually break out these fraction into two parts, it becomes 3y upon 7x minus 1 into 100, correct? So from
Yes.
this equation, what is y by x? 5 by 2. So can I
5 by 2.
substitute 5 by 2 over here?
Yes, ma'am.
So what will it become? What will it become? 15 by 14 minus 1.
15 by 14.
So my entire fraction becomes 1 by 14. So 1 by 14 is what percentage? 1 by 14 is what percentage?
7.14.
So it is closest to 7%. All right. Come on, I wanted to try this question. It's easy. You know what? I would not even write anything on the paper. Without solving, I can say my answer would be this. Can anyone say why?
It's a multiple.
Correct. It's a multiple of. What is asked to me? Weekly income of the first person. So, first person, the income is 7x. Second person, the income is 3x. Clearly, the income of the first person has to be a multiple of 7. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Only one option is the multiple of 7. I will not solve this question.
Got it, ma'am.
Even if you solve it, you move ahead, you'll still get the same answer though. Moving ahead, try this. Yes. Did we all get the combined ratio?
Yes, ma'am.
Now what is said, so now there's a common sense thing. The difference between the largest and the smallest is 400. What is the largest here?
6,
6x, right? And the smallest here is
4.
4. So the difference between these two is 400, which means 2x is 400. So your x becomes 200.
Yes, ma'am.
Then Sunil's share. What is Sunil's share? 4x, which is nothing but 800. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Moving ahead. Let's try this. An alloy is prepared by mixing three metals A, B, C in the proportion of 3:4:7 by volume, and weight of the same volume of metals A, B, C are in the ratio 5:2:6. Don't get confused between both the ratios. 3:4:7 is the quantity of alloys, and 5:2:6 is the weight of the alloys, of the metals. So in 130 kg of alloy, the weight in kg of metal C would be how much? How should we start up with this? Your total weight is 130 kg of the entire alloy. So in that case, what will be the proportion of your volumes?
It has 3 parts of A, 4 parts of B, and 7 parts of C.
But the weights are this. So if I have to consider the total weights and volumes, can I say that A will be three parts and 5 times each part? B will be 4 parts and 2 times of each part? And C will be 7 parts and 6 times of each part? Because the weight also has to be considered, no? Do you understand what
Yes,
I
ma'am.
said? Right? So the final proportion of A, B, and C is going to be 15:8:42. Now in 130, I want to know the weight of C. So weight of C is nothing but 42 upon. What is the total weight over here?
65.
65 into 130, which will give me 65 into 2 cancels, and that is nothing but 84 kg. Because this 130 kg of an entire alloy will be coming from two different what to say factors. One is what is the proportion of every metal, and that proportion also what is the weight of that metal. Both of these combined will give you 130 kg. That is why we mixed both of them to find the final ratio by weight of A, B, and C in the alloy. Okay, let's look at the next question. It's IIFT question. Ravindra and Rekha got married 10 years ago, and their ages were in the ratio 5:4. Today, Ravindra's age is 1/6 more than Rekha's age. So, in such questions, no, always assume whatever variable you are taking, always take the present age. So, let's say Ravindra's present age is X because both are with R. I cannot take alphabet, so I'm taking X and Y. And Rekha's present age is Y. Now, let's try to start forming the equations from the first statement itself. 10 years ago, their ages were in the ratio 5:4. How can you form this equation? Hmm? Present age is X and Y. So 10 years ago, their ages will be X minus 10 and Y minus 10, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that will be 5:4. This is your first equation. Today, Ravindra's age is 1/6 more than Rekha's age. How will you form the second equation? Yes?
X is equal to Y plus 1/6 of Y.
which is 7/6 of
7/6 of
y.
y.
Okay. After marriage, they had 6 children, including a triplet and twins. The age of the triplets, twins, and the 6th child is in the ratio 3:21. The age of triplets, twins, and the 6th child is in the ratio 3:21. How come 3 things and 2 things in the ratio? Triplets, twins, and the 6th child. I think there is some issue with the statement. What do you think?
Or they might have considered triplets and twins as one, or and sixth child as one part.
Mm, okay. Or let's do one thing. Chalo, before going to that, here I have 2 equations in terms of x and y, correct? Let's try to solve both these equations, then you should get definite value of x and y. Solve and tell me the value of x and y. Maybe we don't need that statement at all.
Y is 30.
30, 30,
Yes.
and x is
35.
35. So both of them totally make up 65. Okay. Now, if I have to go by the options, they are asking me the largest possible value of the present total age of the family. So because they are asking me the largest possible value, I will start with the largest possible option. Okay. So 107 minus 65 should be the age of the children. Correct? This is giving me 42. Okay. And can the age of the children combined be 42 years? Because I have 3 triplets. Let's say triplets is A. I have 2 twins. Let's say twins is B. And I have a third child C. So I want that their summation should be 42. But I'm still not convinced with this ratio statement. So as if we try with what one of you just said, if I try also, I don't think this will satisfy, will it? Or I think the statement should have 3:2:1.
Yes, ma'am. Then
Triplets,
it
twins,
can be
and
formed.
fifth child. Yes. Then I think it is possible.
So 6
So
x
3
is equal to
into
42.
3x. Yeah, so 3 because there are 3 children. So age of each triplet is 3x. So 3 into 3x plus 2 into 2x plus x. Do you get it? Is 40. So 9 plus 4 is 13 and 1 14. So x is 3. See, this is possible. So if this is possible, 107 is also possible. The answer is 107 for sure. And I think this is what we just rectified has to be the only way. This will be 3:2:1. Are we clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And did we understand why we multiplied 3x, 2x, and x by 3, 2, and 1? Because this is for 3 children triplets, this is for twins, and this is for a single child. So don't get confused. Moving ahead. All right. Amal, Beena, and Gauri, they invest the money in this ratio in FDs, having respective annual interest rates in this ratio. What is the total interest income after an year if Beena's interest income exceeds Amal's interest income by 250 rupees? So first of all, what is their investment amount? A, B, and G. What is their investment amount, or in this terms, can I say principal? What is their principals?
3x, 4x, and 5x.
Right? And what is their rate of interest?
6y, 5y, and 4y.
Correct. Beena's interest income exceeds Amal's interest income by 250. So what is Beena's interest income? Clearly it's 1 year, so simple interest. So simple interest is PRN upon 100. So what is Bina's interest income? PRN is 1 upon 100. Clear? Exceeds Amal's interest. So what is Amal's interest?
3x into 6y by 100.
And this is 250. Correct? So 4x into 5y is 20, 3 into 6 is 18, to 2xy is equal to 250, 0. I am asked what is their total interest income. Now, can I say the total interest income, let's say for Amal, is going to be 18xy by 100. For Bina, it's going to be 20xy by 100. And for Gauri is going to be again 20xy by 100. So my total interest is going to be how much? 58xy by 100. Are we clear up till here? If you would have noticed, I didn't solve this further. Why? Because I can directly substitute 2xy. So if I substitute that, can I say my numerator will be 25,000 into 29 upon 100. Anybody who got confused here?
No, ma'am.
So what is 29 into 25? How would you do this? Again, what is 25 into 3? What is 25 into 30 instead of 29?
75.
So this has to be slightly lesser than 75.
Yes.
My answer should be 7250.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, moving ahead. Let's see this question related to proportional. The height of Santosh is proportional to the square root of his age. If nothing is mentioned, by default, it is direct proportion. So height is directly proportional to the square root of age. Now we did proportions, variations, I mean. So in variations, if there's a direct variation, what remains constant? Do you remember?
The ratio.
Ratio, which means your h1 upon square root of a1 will be equal to h2 upon square root of a2. Correct? What will be the height of Santosh at 16 years? So this is a2. h2 is what you're supposed to find. If he is 4 feet tall at the age of 9 years, you just need to put your values. Are we getting this? So h2 is 16 by 3 feet. Of course, you will have to convert it into feet and inches. So this is 5 1/3 feet. So what is 1/3 of a feet? 1 feet is 12 inches. So 1/3 of a feet will be?
4 inches.
So my answer is going to be 5 feet 4 inches. Okay. Next, the value of a diamond is directly proportional to the square of its weight. Always make sure you write this properly. If the diamond weighing 4 kg breaks into 2 pieces, its total value decreases by 37.5%. What are the weights of these 2 pieces? Diamond weighing 4 kg. So initial my weight is 4 kg. So let's say my initial value is proportional to, my value is 4 4s are 16. So my value has to be somewhere 16 ka multiple, right? But it's a proportionality. I'm removing the proportionality to ease off this question. So because my weight is 4, my value has to be proportional to square of weight, which will be 16k. Fine. Now this value decreases by 37.5%. What is 37.5%? 37.5% is nothing but 3/8 of a number. We know 1/8 is 12.5, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So 3/8 will be 37.5. So if something reduces by 37.5, which means if something reduces by 3/8, it becomes 5/8 of a number. Do you agree with this?
Yes, ma'am.
So your total weight should now come down to, total value should now come down to 10K. Fine. Now, how can we do that? We can do that by using options. Let's say if I take an option of 2 kg and 2 kg, which means your first value will be proportional to 2 twos are 4. Second value will also be proportional to 2 twos are 4. And your total will come down to 8K, which is not equal to 10K. So this is not valid. If you take the third option, 3 threes are 9, plus 1 ones are 1. This is equal to 10K. So your breakage has to be 3 kg and 1 kg. In this question, I had to remove proportionality and use a constant K over here because there was no value which was complete. Okay. So I just found out the value of diamond in terms of K. I reduced it by 37.5%, and then I saw which option satisfies the reduced value. Do we get this?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let's do this last question before we end the session today. The value of gold plate is directly proportional to the square of its diameter while the thickness remains the same. And it is also directly proportional to the thickness while the diameter remains the same. So this can be combined as, okay, two gold plates have their diameters in the ratio 4:3. So basically your V1 upon D1 square T1 is equal to V2 upon D2 square T2 because it's a direct proportional. Okay. Now diameters are in the ratio 4:3, which means let's say if D1 is 4, D2 is 3. So this is 16 into T1 is equal to 9 into T2. Is everybody with me?
Yes,
Agreed
ma'am.
up till here? Okay. Find the ratio of their thickness, which means you're supposed to find T1 upon T2 if value of first is 4 times the value of second, which means V1 is equal to 4V2. So can I just cancel V2 and V2? So what should be the ratio of T1 and T2? So if T1 goes here, it becomes 4/16 and 9 also goes on the top. Your final ratio comes down to
9/4.
9/4. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be ending the class here.